If you look at the top players for consistency, the greatest names ever in StarCraft 2, Innovation and Sue. Who else is there?
But Sue has won so much money from just an incredibly consistent career, always finding his way deep into these big money tournaments.
Sue is pulling the trigger, coming forward now. He can divide the third base from the second. He's continuing to spill it.
I kind of feel like Sue has a lot of anti-fans out there, people who kind of dislike watching Sue play a little bit because he makes their favorite players look a little bit bad sometimes.
I don't see what he could possibly do from this position to come back. Sue has made it happen after 25 minutes of absolute brutality.
상징적이죠. 정말 이제는 더 이상 어떻게 대체할 수 있는 독보적인 2인자의 캐릭터.
But Sue is a real contender. He's a guy that doesn't lack mechanics at all. When you see his hand on the keyboard and stuff, he's absolutely crazy and phenomenal.
Sue taking some awesome engagements here, using the fastest speed of these Glial Reconstitution Roaches. They are just going in and out, in and out. The micro is fantastic here. Sue, the mechanical beast, taking as good trades as he possibly can.
Usually if you get to a GSL final and you don't win, you don't normally come back. Yeah. This guy is one of a kind, really in all of StarCraft 2 history.
You know, with Sue, the perfect range of Zerg. There's really nothing he can't do.
Yeah.
Sue is one of the greatest players to have ever lived. From being one of the most consistent players to conquering the deadliest curse in all of esports, he has surpassed any other players in feats. But to truly understand Sue and his story, we must learn why the world of esports called out for Sue in the first place. The date is January 20th, 2007, and it's the night of Sky Pro League Grand Final between SKT and NBC Game Hero. It is a match that SKT should be the favorite to win, but now they are 3-3 in the series, and it's match point on Pixabektu. This last game will determine the winner of the entire season. It will be decided by Go Rush, the Zerg player representing SKT, and C, the Terran player representing NBC Game Hero. The map is considered Zerg favored, but SKT had a reputation for weak Zerg players. The tension is high, but the question on everyone's mind is, can this SKT Zerg close it out when it matters the most? The result of this series would end up changing the course of SKT forever. SKT was devastating. Losing 4-3 to a complete underdog team in the grand finals was a disgrace. They needed to make a change, and they knew what they needed to do. They needed a Zerg player, someone who could round out their roster and stop this from ever happening again. But they didn't need just any Zerg. They had to get an ace, someone who could push SKT to new heights, someone who could save the name of SKT. Sue grew up in a small town near Daejeon. Like most Korean kids his age, he loved to play on the PC with his friends. The game that caught his attention the most though was Starcraft Brood War. Sue's first competitive Brood War memory was watching the 2003 Olympus OSL finals between Yellow and Zelos. Yellow would heartbreakingly lose to Zelos 2-3, adding the series to the list of second place finishes, which would further cement Yellow's status as the king of second places, the first Kong. Sue was adamantly discouraged by his parents to not pursue pro gaming and to focus on his studies instead. So, although he enjoyed watching pro matches, becoming a pro gamer was never an interest for him. Despite this, Sue still found it fun to play StarCraft in his free time. However, unlike most of the other Korean kids, he was actually quite good. Sue even decided to participate in a Courage qualifier, which took place in Seoul. A Courage event was the official way to earn a pro gamer's license in South Korea, and Sue was playing it for fun. Remarkably, Sue would qualify for Courage in one attempt. While qualifying for this license in one attempt wasn't particularly significant amongst established pro gamers, it was one of many indicators that Sue was not just an average kid playing his favorite video game. Sue would enter tournaments in his free time, and with his pro gamer's license, he was able to play in exclusive events. What Sue did not know, however, was that there was a watchful eye observing his play at these events. Legendary SKT player turned coach I Love Uv was on location, scouting for potential players to recruit to his team. But he was not there for just anyone. He needed to find a promising Zerg player who could save their roster. After seeing Sue play, he saw promise in him and approached Sue about trialing for SKT. Initially, Sue did not show any interest, remembering the advice of his parents to focus on his studies. But I Love Uv eventually convinced him that SKT could make it worthwhile. But first, he would have to pass the trial. To evaluate his skill, I Love Uv put him up against Midas, who was a solid SKT Terran player. He won the trial match, and I Love Uv was convinced of his potential, but there was just one problem. You see, he hadn't actually told his parents that he had been going to Brood War tournaments, let alone obtaining a pro license this whole time. Su's parents made it very clear that he would not be pursuing pro gaming. They were concerned that he'd be wasting his time on a risky dream like esports. Now, Su was met with a promising contract from one of the biggest esports teams in the country. Fortunately, SKT's name had enough weight that it convinced his parents that going pro in Starcraft Brood War could work, and he was officially signed in the first half of the 2008 draft. It's important to understand the prestige pro teams like SKT had at this time, and also why SKT needed to fix their Zerg roster so badly. SKT stood for South Korean Telecom, which was one of the major telecom companies in South Korea. Every professional team in South Korea was part of the Korean Esports Association, which was founded in 2000. KESPA was created by the South Korean government with the goal to make esports an official sporting event. Having the government intervene in the development of esports was never seen before, and added a level of legitimacy to esports that was unparalleled at the time. KESPA was very strict with the rule sets and created structure to an otherwise unregulated industry. South Korea would subsequently become the mecca of esports. The biggest South Korean organizations such as South Korean Telecom, Jin Air, and Samsung would become big contributors in esports by starting their own teams named after their brand. It became a cultural phenomenon.
Job's finished.
씨 뿌리는 질럿.
You couldn't go far without seeing a PC cafe packed with people playing Starcraft. Many players were famous for their results competing for individual leagues, but KESPA's most unique tournament was a team league called Pro League. With Pro League, KESPA would be able to routinely show off top teams pitted against each other in regular TV programming. The format of Pro League was simple. Teams would set out their lineup in advance blindly based on the map order. After the submission phase, each team would see the opposing lineup and have a week to prepare for their match. On game day, each team would send out their players one at a time until someone won the series. Because of the nature of this format, teams needed a strong lineup with a variety of players to be ready to field a player for any type of opponent, map, or team they would face. This is where SKT's problem came in. SKT were known for having very strong Terran and Protoss players, but if there was a Zerg favored map, it was a major weakness on their lineup, and it was something they could not overcome. SKT was such an iconic team, but their Zergs had gained a stigma as being the problem child of the otherwise perfect team. SKT needed to fix this problem, and they knew they had to try something different. They hired on a replacement coach named Park Woon, best known as Coach Park. He used SKT's stardom as an asset and put their status to good use by recruiting as many rookies as possible. Their goal was to take these players and nurture them into an all-star lineup of the future. This is where players like Su came in. Su's sole mission as a rookie was to train under SKT and fix their problematic Zerg roster into something that would thrive and excel past the other teams in Pro League, and ultimately put SKT's Zerg roster back on the map. When Su first arrived at SKT's team house, he was very nervous, being in such an unfamiliar environment. But as he was setting up his desk, he felt someone come up behind him to comfort the newest rookie of the team. That player would be none other than Fantasy, a Terran player who was a senior in SKT, joining just a year prior. Fantasy and Su would become good friends, and Fantasy would even help Su learn the ropes on what it means to be a professional player. Su's focus would not solely be on playing for Pro League though. He also qualified for individual tournaments such as OSL in 2011. This tournament was particularly notable because Su advanced deep into the tournament, reaching the quarterfinals to play against Jongbi. Su's run in this premier tournament was an unusual occurrence. Not only was it uncommon for a rookie so early in his career to make it deep into a premier tournament, but even more so strange were the circumstances of how he got there. His opponent in the round of 8 was known by the ID Killer. Killer was the better known player representing LeaCaf Oz and was often fielded in Pro League. Su in comparison was unknown, since he had not seen nearly as much time in Pro League. But this would be his time to prove himself as an up-and-coming SKT Zerg player. Unfortunately, in the middle of the series there were technical difficulties, but Killer had not properly signaled for a pause. Killer would subsequently forfeit the second game because of this. It was a prime example of KESPA's rigid rule set coming into play, and Su would go on to win the third game, winning the series 2-1. Instead of it being an opportunity to prove himself, it had only made the public's perception of him worse. Fans were not happy about KESPA's stubborn ruling. They were annoyed that seemingly a rookie player had gotten a lucky break into the round of 8 as a result. Sue had become known as the League Breaker, someone who breaks leagues by beating fan favorites and breaking the expectation of the fans. With their dissatisfaction with this result, they looked for Jongbi to right what they saw as an injustice. The fans would be cheering so loudly for Jongbi that day that the stage that they were playing on began to shake. The intimidation of the fans and the tournament environment made Sue feel nervous. Sue felt like he was destined to be in the position of being cheered against. Sue would end up losing the series 3-0, but making it into the round of 4 in a premier tournament as a player just a few years into his StarCraft career was no small feat, even if it had been in an unusual circumstance. Some fans noticed Sue's earnest demeanor and saw him in a different light after the tournament. This would be the year Sue would really start standing out as one of SKT's top Zergs. It became known that he could be relied on when he was needed from his team, sporting a high win rate in rounds 5 and 6 in Pro League. Finally, it felt like he had solidified himself as a solid Zerg. That is, until something terrible happened.
서울중앙지검 첨단범죄수사 2부는 승부 조작을 주도한 게이머 육성학원 운영업자 박모 씨를 구속 기소하고
Suspicious games created rumors, and those rumors turned into investigations. Unfortunately, those investigations revealed an infection in team rosters. The top players were match-fixing games for money, and it devastated the StarCraft scene. Teams disbanded due to several sponsors pulling out. And viewership dropped after fans found out their favorite game had become corrupt, subsequently making the matches meaningless. While Kespa tried to salvage the damage by creating a new 8th team to keep the league running, match fixing had plagued the StarCraft Brood War scene, and fans just couldn't be sure if they could ever trust professional Brood War matches again. It would be one thing if lower level players had match fix, but when the best of the best were match fixing, it meant that anyone could get bought. Every time someone made a poor decision, there was always a feeling in the back of their mind. Is he match fixing? Ultimately, it was a wound that could never heal, and it put Brood War at death's door. Just when Sue felt like he was finding a groove in Brood War and getting results, everything was crumbling down. Kespa's solution was to start fresh in the form of StarCraft 2, the sequel to Brood War. Sue found himself in a unique position. Every Kespa player, whether they were better or worse than Sue, were now completely equal from the same starting point. And while troubling for the greats of Brood War, for someone who started his career so late into Brood War's lifespan like Sue, this could be a great opportunity to take advantage of his green status as a player. One of the ways Kespa players were introduced to the world of StarCraft 2 was through an invitational tournament hosted by MLG between 24 of the best Kespa players versus 24 of the best StarCraft 2 players from around the world. This was a legendary moment where some of the best Brood War players like Flash and Jaedong would go up against the champions of StarCraft 2 like MC and Thorzane. It was an experiment to see the differences in skill that Kespa players possessed when compared to the Koreans and Western players who had a 2-year head start on StarCraft 2. Amongst these legendary players was a familiar player named Sue within the invites from Kespa. Sue would have a chance to show himself off along with the greats of Brood War, but now on an even playing field.
Could this be it? Could Sue actually win the MVP finals right here? The stalker count is it's dropping like flies right now.
I mean, Oz can only morph in Stalkers. There's just too much variety of units being thrown at him. The 5-base terror, Sue relying on all his gas, shoving more and more Mutilis down his throat, and there's the GG! Unbelievable, Sue! Barely managing to qualify for the playoffs, had to play through round-robin tiebreakers to get the last spot position, then took down Baby, and then Flash, and then Soul Key, and here against Oz manages to show that he has an incredible playstyle in all 3 matchups.
While this wasn't the most competitive tournament format, the fact that Sue was able to claw out of a 5-way tiebreaker with the other Kespa players was a great achievement to show what things were in store for the future of SKT Zergs. One thing was certain with this tournament though. In a short amount of time, Kespa had already caught up with the rest of the world and were already dominating the few tournaments they were exposed to, and players like Sue were at the forefront. Sue would continue competing in StarCraft 2. In 2013, he would find some difficulty progressing through Korea's main circuit, GSL. It was known as the most difficult and prestigious league in StarCraft 2 because it was based in Seoul, South Korea, where the best players in the world lived. Sue would be able to consistently qualify for the GSL and reach top 16, but would find difficulty ever getting past it. Eventually, in the very last season of 2013, Sue would finally break through the barrier and show everyone what he was made of.
Sue and Super move on, and we have now completed the round of 32.
GG. And Innovation not going to that round of 8. Instead,
had
Sue.
another upset.
Wow. Wow. And that's what a 3-0 looks like.
GG.
Wow.
3-0. We have our second finalist. Well, really weird results today, right? We had Deer 3-1 and Sue 3-0. Okay.
Despite doing quite well throughout the tournament, Sue was under the radar. Perhaps it was the SKT Zerg stigma still extending from Brood War, but ultimately, Sue was ready to prove himself in an individual tournament. His opponent in the finals would be Deer, a strong Protoss from Seoul. Deer was in a unique position to become a Royal Roader, meaning a person that qualifies and wins their first GSL in the same season. More importantly though, Deer's team Seoul was in a complicated position financially, and winning a GSL could keep them on the map a little longer to sustain the team. Sue, for the first time in his life, was in the grand finals of a premier tournament, and he had his entire team behind him. Before this, SKT Zergs had never even got to the final bracket, and they were looking towards Sue to break the cycle and become SKT's first Zerg champion.
Adequate defense there at his third.
Oh,
And this is going to be a forced cancel. By the way, we do have Deer expanding to the bottom left here, so even if he loses this base, he can still probably get a third up.
Which is really important, because it's not that you can't come back against this unit composition, but if he loses this army, it is. Oh, this, you know, he's being really efficient considering the size of his army, but it's all about to go away.
That's going to be it. And Sue now coming back.
Both just about maxed out here.
Investors now moving out of the map. He's got to be careful with those, actually.
Yeah, you can't be losing them like that. Nice blink forward.
Yeah, and I noticed he only blinked in there with 4.
Yeah.
And with this rock here like this, oh my god, and running into that storm.
Well, that's some good fungals, and he does come up with a bit of a flank, but the amount of Colossi, as well as these storms, and oh my god, just a brutal slaughter of the army
Did
of
that
Sue.
Colossus not die? That's it.
GG.
That's it. GG. Yeah, he didn't make a lot of gas, okay. Nice force field so far, but there's a really good arc here for these roaches.
Some good micro from Sue. Look at that, pulling these roaches back after every hit. The other roaches getting through these force fields. Suddenly it looks like Sue with a great concave on Deer.
Unbelievable. Pushing forward now, wiping out these roaches here. Rather the sentries and the stalkers. And I think that's it. 58 supply to 125. What the hell does Protoss do from here?
GG indeed. Really well played here from Sue. A strong defense. Deer almost breaking him a couple times.
The Broodlords are closing in. And this is where the surprise starts to kick in as the unexpected appearance of an air fleet here of Broodlords now pushes down, making these Immortals absolutely useless at Time Warp as he attempts to retreat further and further away. But can he get a blink in underneath?
Oh, he might be able to.
Does he have blink?
That
Oh no, he
Colossus
doesn't.
walks through everything. The Queen's actually taking quite a bit, trying to keep these Broodlords alive. Blink not yet done, but he's just walking forward. It looks like Deer, he has too much.
And now Deer wipes out their single remaining Broodlord. Sue is in a crisis right now.
But here we go. This could be the last battle of the game, the last battle of the season, Tasteless. Deer starting to break through. So few units left for Sue. Do we have a new Protoss GSL Contest champion?
It looks like we do. GG.
And Deer is our WCS Korea Season 3 champion.
Sue had an incredible GSL run, but unfortunately he couldn't keep it together to finish Deer off. SKT's coaching staff really wanted to prepare some unique builds for the series, but there just wasn't enough time to amount to anything. As a result, Sue ended up just sticking to his safe builds for the finals, but in the end, he was too predictable. Even if Sue couldn't win here, it still gave him the confidence that he could win a finals in the future.
제 기분을 아는 사람은 한 사람들밖에 몰라요. 그래서 명훈이 형이 저한테는 진짜 큰 위로가 됐죠. 명훈이 형도 4회 준우승인가? 하고 우승을 했던 사람이어가지고 항상 그 형이 이제 위로해주면은 좀 힘이 많이 됐죠. 제가 실수했던 거는 첫 결승 때 이제 명훈이 형이 같은 팀이었으니까 응원하러 오잖아요. 명훈이 형이 자기는 준우승을 4번이나 했었다, 그러고 우승했다, 이렇게 저한테 힘을 주는 거예요. 저는 비웃었거든요. 어떻게 사람이 4번이나 준우승할 수 있어, 이 마인드로 명훈이 형을 비웃었던 게 있는.
It became clear that being a top player meant more than just Pro League results for Sue. He had outgrown that mission, and now he only wanted one thing, to win a championship. Little did Sue know that as the doors closed for this GSL Finals, the start of another journey would begin soon after.
Sue's going to win this, and that means that
That's it right there. That's the give up.
Super is going to be out. The first person to lose today here in Group C of the round of 16. GG.
And once again, Sue shows that he gets into the late game in a beautiful way.
Sue's form was incredible, but form was not enough, because in this era of Starcraft 2, Protoss had become the dominant race around the world. What made Sue different from other Zergs was his dedication to a unit composition that no one else had picked up nearly as much as he had. That's right, Mutalist Corruptor. His Mutalist style outpaced every Protoss' mid-game timings and builds. Now, some of you might be hearing this and being like, yeah, okay, everyone played Mutalist Corruptor, but Sue was miles ahead of everyone else at incorporating this strategy. It became his signature style to the point of playing it in spots where it might have been less than ideal. But regardless, it was his preferred way of playing, and it was ultimately what set him apart from others, and it gave him continued success. Following Sue's first GSL Finals, he had insane momentum heading to the next GSL. At the rate Sue was going, it was only a matter of time before he'd reach the finals to claim his trophy. There was something about Sue and the way he would talk about his opponents. He was relentlessly confident in himself and his ability. People didn't understand yet that this Sue was not the player they remembered back in Brood War. And Sue would still be underrated even after topping his group without dropping a single series again and again. Sue had his eyes set on one thing, the trophy. He would quickly advance through the playoffs, beating his teammate Parting in the round of 8, and Life in the semifinals. But the person who would be waiting for him in the finals would be known as Zest. Funnily enough, he'd also be a potential Royal Roader like Deer. Despite Zest not qualifying for GSL up until now, he still dominated the competition to reach the finals. Even though he had not qualified for a GSL, Zest was not a new player by any means. In fact, just a few months prior, Zest had beaten Sue in Pro League representing KT, the rival telecom team. Regardless, Sue had been the most trained he had ever been, and now it was time to lay it all out in the finals.
That is a lot of roaches, though, and in fact, he's not making anything out of this Stargate.
Yeah, I think that's a misclick. There we go, because it was chrono boosted.
Ooh, that force field is not actually something I'm a fan of either, and it looks like this roach attack may end up working.
Well, you know, here's the other problem too. He has 2 queens, so even if the Void Ray does pop out, you know, they're going to have to deal with the queens first, while the roaches can continue to deal damage. I think Sue's counterattack
he's dead
just
now.
won him the game. But for now, it does look like game number 1, GG.
Well, you know what? His Phoenixes are out of position, so he's decided to go. Oh, I don't know that this is going to work, but all those cannons, Moroccon's coming in as well. He knows this is his last chance. He has to get something done. A lot of links coming in, but those cannons actually spreading these mutas out a lot.
The Archons just might be too strong. I think a game in which Sue looked like he was guaranteed to be the winner. Zest has pulled through.
Thing is, those things are going to fall pretty soon here. One of the Colossus goes down. Another 2 do fall. And that is going to be that. You are not coming back this time. I mean, that is 3 dead Colossus.
You can't take a third like that. It's a very rare game, especially for a GSL Finals. But from here, yeah, Zest knows better to bring it on to the next game.
He's walking into a very wide open area. If he can do it, it's going to be here. And let's see, those Immortals really going to work. A great Time Warp comes up. The 2 Colossi not even being targeted down yet. Finally getting targeted.
On the ground, being wiped out. The Colossi have already done their job.
This is the last Roaches and Hydras coming down the ramp right now. But Zest, he knows he has this. There is no way that all these Blink Stalkers are going to come out.
GG!
Zest!
Unbelievable!
A Royal Roader. He came out of Code B.
Sue was not able to finish the series with a win, and once again he had lost in the GSL Finals, resulting in back-to-back GSL second places. This was the first time in StarCraft 2's history that someone had achieved 2 second place finishes in a row in the same premier tournament, let alone the GSL.
Amazing play today. Sue, we have to give it up for him as well. He's a
very
fantastic
good
player. 2 second places. Unfortunately, a lot of jokes are going to start about him now. Marine King, Yellow type jokes. But you know what? An amazing Zerg indeed.
We need to talk. At this point, Sue was hitting a special time in his career, where he had won a major tournament and 2 consecutive second places in a premier tournament. These results were viewed differently by the Western and Korean communities in Starcraft 2 due to different schools of thought. The first perspective was that Sue was doing well with a major tournament win and 2 second place finishes in GSL. So he's a top performing player who probably has an even more successful career ahead of him, right? Well, the viewpoint in Korea was that this first tournament win did not meet the criteria of the other tournaments. That's because the first competition was not considered Tier 1. Tier 1 tournaments are a priority because they contribute the most to qualifying for BlizzCon. BlizzCon is the most prestigious tournament because it finalizes the season at the end of the year. So, if your competition gives less points, or even worse, no points, then the level of competition is reflected in that. Because of this, to Korean fans, Sue had 2 second places in a row in the GSL, and subsequently, Sue had started to enter the world of Kong.
한번 들어보죠. 여러분, 콩라인의 정의가 뭡니까? 본인 생각하는 콩라인이란?
정의요?
네.
야, 일단 질문이 상당히 좀 심오한데요. 콩라인의 정의라고 하면은 우승과 엄청나게 좀 가깝지만은 가장 먼 사람들의 모임이라고 할까?
The title Kong was named after this guy right here. Yellow was a legendary player from the beginning of Brood War's professional scene, but unfortunately, he had the displeasure of getting 4 second places in premier tournaments before ever seeing a win. Thus, the nickname Kong was born. The word itself means being, which is a play on his name and a reference to Yellow's short stature. From then on, any player that had an unfortunate trend in second places was also deemed a Kong, thus starting the Kong line. This was especially unfortunate because not only was it bad enough to be 1 series away from winning the whole tournament, but now with the title of Kong, people speculated that there could be a greater explanation to how it happened. There was a target on a Kong's back, and this made the title Kong like a curse. Because of this, people who were deemed Kongs normally lost steam in their career, and it was not easy to recover.
What's your goals here? And he says, so all my opponents are so easy to go up against. It's going to be a breeze here tonight.
The air around Sue had begun to change. He was not able to win a finals for himself, but everyone knew how hard it was to be in a finals back-to-back in the GSL. And the confidence that he had displayed from the very beginning had finally begun to be reinforced with his outstanding achievement. Sue would find little trouble advancing through another tournament, but this time when he reached the finals of the GSL, he found his teammates and friends telling him, "You got this." It felt like the world was finally ready to see Sue win his first finals. But there was just one problem. Sue's opponent was a fellow teammate with the ID Classic, a Protoss player that he even played and lost to in the group stage of this tournament. Playing versus teammates is always a delicate situation, but what made this even more difficult was that Sue was tasked to play in Pro League the same week. Kespit team's priority had always been Pro League first, and any individual league second. He was forced to dedicate most of his time to playing Zerg versus Terran to prepare for Gumiho in Pro League, instead of his GSL finals versus Classic. While Sue was preparing for a different matchup in Pro League, Classic was not scheduled to play in Pro League at all, leaving Classic a full 8 days to practice uninterrupted. While the situation felt incredibly unfair, Sue would simply have to bear it and push forward. After all, his friends, family, and fans all believed in him. All that was left now was to do his best.
Truth be told, the amount of time between each of the GSL finals, the fact that he's been in each of those finals, this is a long stretch. This is not the period where we had, GSLs like back-to-back each month.
Yeah.
This is where, now a GSL takes about 2 months, then we have a little bit of time off, Code. This guy still is getting to the finals, and I'm going with the experience factor here. I feel like if you're somebody who's been in the finals back-to-back this many times, you should feel much more comfortable, much less stressed. The only possible stressor that you could have is if you were to lose again and start a history of getting second place. But the way that I see Sue and his personality and how confident he's played throughout this season especially, I don't think that mindset's going to be hitting him as much. Maybe if he gets second place from here, that'll be a bigger factor. But for now, I feel like it's his time. He should be winning.
I think he's more of a Stork than a Yellow. Couple second places to start off, and then he's just going to be around forever because the guy is just so ridiculously skilled. Some great fungals coming down for sure, but just not enough units here from Sue.
You can see the Lynx are coming up a little bit too late. They're going to get hit by the Colossi and the Archon. There's nothing else Su can do, and Classic wins the first game here.
There we go. 38 Mewtwo's out. There you go. That's exactly what he needs.
Okay, now this is a lot here from Su, but there's so many Stalkers here. I mean, you got to look at the Blink Micro right now. The Colossus still doing a lot of damage. Only now the Mewtwo's hitting the Colossus, but that might be too late. Now, don't forget there are Archons that are going to be coming up here momentarily. Again, if he just keeps blinking, if he just keeps focusing on his army, this is going to thin out. Here come the Archons now.
Yeah, he's got to get those Archons up there to help out. Of course, Archon's not as good against Hydras. Would have been a lot better a little bit earlier in this battle.
Loading your army, and then GG. Artosis, you realize if Classic wins this next game, this is Su's third time in the finals. His third time, and he does not win.
That's rough. He's gonna like people are gonna talk about it forever, man. Just like it was with Marine King, Stork, and of course Yellow, the original second placer.
Yeah.
Thing.
Oh! Actually, not.
Yeah, that
greatest
was actually
force fields. Nice force field there. Trap those drones. More Zealots hitting from the top here and picking up just these Hydras down here on the low ground. I think this is going to be the killing blow. Su not happy with these results. History this time around is definitely going to continue to repeat itself.
Oh man, this has to just be killer for Su to have to go through this. He's going to be second place once again.
Nothing mining here at the second, nothing mining over there at the third, and the Phoenix is here in the main. GG. Beautifully done there by Classic.
And Classic is your GSL champion of Code S. Overcome with emotions right there, as you can see.
I can't imagine the emotions that Su is feeling.
Looks like sadness to me, Tasteless. Disappointment.
He's made a name for himself, but not the name he set out when he started his pro gaming career. Instead, the name others are giving to him. You know, the silver medal.
Yes, that's right. The Kong line does continue.
Please give a big round of applause to Su, getting second place here today. Su has not yet left the booth, by the way, understandably so.
Su is not coming out of there, Tasteless.
He might be in there for a little bit.
Su had officially lost GSL for a third time in a row, and he was completely devastated. It felt like he was doomed to fail from the beginning. With SKT's focus on Pro League, they didn't pay any attention to GSL, and Su was the one who got the short end of the stick. Eventually, even Su's parents stopped coming to watch him, out of fear that even their presence would add more pressure to Su in the finals. It felt bittersweet because while Su wanted to see his parents in the crowd, he also felt the weight of his fans' growing expectations. Being a Kong was a complicated curse for Ayan Su.
여기서 제가 역으로 물어볼게요. 준우승을 많이 하는 팀은 왜 준우승을 많이 할 것 같으세요? 굉장히 중요한 이유가 있는데.
그냥 결승을 치르는 그 순간에는 상대팀보다 실력이 딸려서?
그런 실력적인 요소가 100% 맞는 말인데 가장 부담되는 요소가 하나가 있죠.
어떤 거죠?
주변 분위기죠. 주변 분위기가 숙소 내를 얘기하는 게 아니에요. 숙소 내에서의 암울한 분위기도 있는데 팬들의 분위기도 그렇게 되어 있죠. 우리에게 가장 중요한 건 누구예요? 팬들이죠. 그렇죠. 우리 응원해주는 팬들이죠. 근데 팬들의 분위기가 좀 어떻겠어요? 준우승 많이 하는 팀은 어떻겠어요? 또 하는 거 아니야? 그런 분위기가 커뮤니티에 많을까요? 적을까요? 많을 수밖에 없죠. 야, 좀 성불 좀 시켜줘라. 진짜 너희들 좀 적당히 해라. 진짜 3년째다 4년째다. 야, 이러면서 막 얘기 들릴 거 아니에요, 그렇죠? 그러다 보니까 이런 분위기들도 그렇고 이 모든 안 좋은 우주의 기운이 모인다는 얘기는 그래서 말씀드린 거예요. 보는 사람들도 또 준우승 하겠지 뭐 이렇게 바라본다니까요. 나를 방해하는 요소가 적으면 적을수록 좋은 거잖아요. 있는 그대로 그 게임 안에 몰입하는 게 가장 중요한데 여러 가지 부정적인 요소가 중간에 들어와서 나의 잔실수가 나의 멘탈을 해치는 것처럼 크게 느껴진다? 이런 것들이 좀 들어오지 않을까요? 아마도? 그래서 준우승을 하지 않을까요?
그러면은 준우승을 연속으로 잡고 하는 팀이 우승하려면 어떻게 해야 될까요?
그거는 저도 모르죠. 우승을 못 해봤는데 우승의 기분과 맛도 몰라요. 맨날 얻어 터져서 저도 알았으면 우승하지 않았을까요?
The Banelings are coming down. The Lings are going to try to get a surround here.
And did he walk too far on creep? It looks like this army gonna be wiped out.
Su is just not a guy you can win an engagement with.
GSL in 2014 was particularly interesting. In recent GSLs, Protoss was dominant, but throughout the years, more Terran players were slipping into the later stages. Now, at the end of 2014, there was one Terran who stood out above the rest, named Innovation. Previously, top Terran players were aggressive and tricky, but Innovation was clean and calculated. People even joked about his robotic characteristics, but he was the pinnacle of macro Terran. It was almost certain that Innovation and Sue would eventually clash, as they seemed to be the best of their respective races. As predicted, Sue and Innovation would be playing each other in the Grand Finals. Sue was in for a surprise though. Just 1 week before the Grand Finals, he found out that his opponent, Innovation, had become his teammate on SKT. The teammates Sue shared build orders with quickly became Innovation's practice partners, and he was forced to accept the circumstances. SKT invited Innovation for his ability to help in Pro League, but Sue was suffering the consequences once again. He felt annoyed by the situation, but regardless, Sue had a tournament to win, and this could not be the reason he lost now.
Greetings from Seoul, Korea, and welcome to the GSL Codes Finals. I'm Tasteless, with me is Artosis.
And here we are, Tasteless. Let me stop you before you even begin. These two are already legends. 4 GSL finals in a row for Sue. Innovation, formerly the greatest player in the world. And this is going to be just fantastic.
He is the silver medalist of Starcraft, but tonight he could be taking home the gold.
Well, he is certainly going to want to, Tasteless. If he doesn't, I think that this just secures him. It's not going to be called the Kong line anymore. It's going to be called I'm almost like Sue, but not quite as many second places as Sue line.
We have never had a GSL finalist in this many finals back-to-back. Surprisingly, he has yet to win four. This is 4th.
I don't even remember last time he wasn't in one. Look at this. He's adding on another layer of wall. Okay, the Banelings do start hit. They take down this first bunker. Or they're about to take down this first bunker, taking down that supply depot. They push forward. Still 3 more bunkers and a lot of Hellions microing back right now.
Well, he does actually have really good connections with the Banelings. Are you kidding me? Okay, I actually didn't think it was going to be this effective, but he got all the way up there. The Lynx and Roaches are now tearing apart the SCVs. GG. Sue is that much closer to possibly, finally being a GSL champion. Oh, I didn't even see that, actually.
No, none of us did.
So there's Widow Mines over there, by the way. Nice targeting.
Oh, God.
Damn.
Just brutal.
We should be seeing GG shortly here.
Yeah.
Innovation is everywhere.
Just kill the
GG. For Terran right now, it's going to be a little bit trickier to get a 5th base.
That's right. That 4th comes very easily. But hold on. We actually have a big surround here by Sue. Running in so many Banelings going forward. The Widow Mines do burrow. Not the best connections, but great splitting here from Innovation.
Yeah, Innovation. Unbelievable splitting. The Banelings are now coming up, and Zerg's going to have to just barely turn around.
Is he going to be able to actually hold on? Oh, Widow Mine hits his mutas. Banelings do roll out, but a lot of Widow Mines are still undetected.
There's just barely too much. I think this is the tipping point. I think we're going to see Innovation win the GSL and Sue game GG.
Oh my God.
Sue has lost again.
Another 2nd place for the greatest Zerg player in the world, and Innovation takes home his first GSL Code S.
Will Sue ever become a champion? Will he be in the finals again? I want to say yes. He's done what no one else has done before. But he wasn't able to beat his past. He wasn't able to overcome his past. Anything you want to say to your friends and family?
우승하게 됐는데 일단 축하한다고 하고 싶어요.
Yeah, Innovation won tonight. I would like to say congratulations to Innovation first of all. I know I'm always ending up 2nd place.
별로 이렇게 나가고 싶은 마음이 안 생기는데 좀 마음
it's pretty hard for me to be standing here on the final stage again. I just don't know how to win in the finals. All I can do is keep trying.
Memories of fantasy consoling Sue on his first loss versus Deer came rushing back. Who would lose 3 finals in a row? His conceited words felt even more bitter now that he had lost his 4th GSL final in a row. With the transfer of new players coming in like Innovation, there was also some players leaving the team such as Fantasy. With him leaving, Sue would become the longest standing member that had been in SKT their entire career.
아무래도 T1 때부터 제 거의 그런 군대로 치면 약간 맞선임 그런 느낌이어가지고 저한테 옛날부터 이것저것 많이 알려줬고 도움을 많이 줬던 형이에요. 그래서 항상 그 결승할 때든 뭐 무슨 대회를 할 때든 저한테 조언 잘 해줬던 그런 기억이 납니다.
Fantasy's parting words to Sue before leaving were to take care of the team and everyone else. He would never forget that. Su had been in SKT now for 6 years, and at a time like this, it felt like it hadn't given him all that he'd hoped for. Some fans even became bitter with Su. To them, Su was only an obstacle that kept their favorite player from winning. Of course, that was unless they met him in the finals. Once again, it felt like the nickname League Breaker was coming back to haunt Su. Even after all his hard work, he was not considered a serious contender for the trophy. And his history of second places only made it worse.
분들도 되게 제가 안타까워서 그런가 좀 팬으로 막 와주신 분들도 있고 씁쓸하기도 한 게 저의 그 경기력이나 뭐 잘하는 걸로 팬이 된 게 아니라 저의 그 스토리만으로 그 팬이 유입이 있으니까 그거는 좀 아쉽죠. 내가 잘한 게 아닌데 그저 웃음의 소재가 된 느낌.
This loss would set Su onto a darker timeline. Su began to lose his purpose. He was exhausted. It felt like no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get what he wanted. Later in the year, he would qualify for BlizzCon, only to lose right away in the round of 16. He was completely burnt out. He needed a break, but he couldn't stop playing just like that. In the start of 2015, he was notably played less than Pro League. Su's lack of motivation was catching up with him in in-house results, and subsequently, Su would not be seen very much at all for the first half of 2015. When we did finally see Su, he wasn't quite the same Su that we remembered. The calculated macro Zerg we once loved had suddenly become erratic and aggressive. Many fans empathized with Su's predicament, and one article written by Su and edited by Team Liquid would compare the grind that Su went through to the Greek mythology of Sisyphus by titling it as Su, My Life as Sisyphus. In the tale of Sisyphus, a cunning and deceitful king is condemned by the gods to an eternal punishment. His task was to push a boulder up a steep hill, only for it to roll back down each time he nears the top. Sisyphus is trapped in an endless exertion and futility. Much like Sisyphus, Su also seems to be in an endless struggle each tournament, but he always loses his ground just before he can get to the top. Su would have a lackluster couple of years after this, until something incredible happened. He would win a Kespa Cup over Dark, which would be his first premier win. But despite the competition being just as high as GSL, the reception after the tournament was lukewarm. But why? Kespa Cup was considered a Tier 2 event in the WCS circuit, and fans weren't going to let him have it that easy. It wouldn't be enough to just win a premier event, it had to be the highest tier. It wasn't fair. Even when he won a premier tournament, it didn't happen the way he or his fans wanted it to.
저도 그 당시에는 이해를 못했어요. 나름 이제 모든 프로게이머들이 출전하는 대회고 하는 우승한 대회고 오프라인 대회고 이제 인정을 좀 받을 줄 알았는데 사람들 반응이 왜 이러지? 사람들 반응이 왜 인정을 안 해주지? 라고 좀 아쉬워했었는데 지금 생각해보면은 그럴 수도 있다고 생각해요. 뭐 사람 한 명 놀리는데 그냥 그럴 수 있다고 생각합니다. 네.
Unjustifiably, it felt like Su's career was going to peter out just like many Kongs before him, never finding redemption. Su just didn't have the energy he once had for competing. Eventually, he started to slow down and began to collect paychecks waiting for his eventual retirement from Starcraft 2. Su barely kept up with his practice day to day, and it was looking like he'd always be remembered as the unfortunate career, the one that could have been. So many Kongs before him, and Su would be no different. Just another grain of sand in the grand scope of esports.
뭔가 팀이랑 좀 트러블이 좀 많았는데 그래서 이때 게임 하고 싶은 생각도 안 들었고 그냥 이렇게 먹튀 하다가 은퇴해야겠다 이렇게 생각해서 연습을 별로 안 했지.
Starcraft stands as one of the cornerstones of esports, so it's disappointing to see when the latest Starcraft news is something as shameful as match fixing. The arrest of former Blizzard World Champion Lee Life Seong-hung has been followed with an indictment. The news comes from South Korea's largest news agency, Yonhap News, who also reports star player Bang Byung-woo-young was also charged. Life allegedly received the equivalent of roughly $60,000 to throw throw the Kespa Cup last May. That sum was many times larger than the first place prize, which was under $10,000 and only a little more than half of what he made from all of his winnings that year. These players aren't the only two involved. Several other individuals have been indicted and arrested in connection with these charges.
Starcraft was once again devastated by match fixers, and on October 17, 2016, Kespa would announce that they would be discontinuing Pro League after 14 years of competition. It had been revealed that much like Brood War, top players were fixing their games, and it prompted Kespa to disengage from continuing to support the Starcraft scene. 5 Kespa teams would immediately dissolve their Starcraft rosters, leaving just a few teams such as Jin Air and Afrika staying in Starcraft 2 with their own unique reasons. This created a disproportionate ratio of teamless players to teams left in the Starcraft Korean scene, leaving Sue and many other players confused, wondering what to do next.
평생 대은퇴할 때까지 계속 있을 줄 알았는데 갑자기 이제 해체하는 바람에 약간 위기의식을 많이 느꼈고 아 이렇게 살아가면 안 되겠다라고 생각을 해서 해체하고 나서부터 다시 연습생 시절처럼 오히려 그때보다 더 열심히 했던 그 기억이 나네요.
Sue had not been practicing much, and to be able to survive without a salary from SKT, he would need to step up his game in a major way. Now, without a coach, he had to keep himself accountable to make sure that he was playing enough. He kept pressure on himself to practice day in and day out, and slowly but surely, Sue began to improve just like he did when he was at his peak. In 2017, Sue was revitalized. He would finally see his first finals in years versus Stats, but it would not end up resulting in anything significant except adding another finals to Sue's belt. In the next GSL season, he would advance to the finals again to face Gumiho, only to lose 2-4 in the second season of the year.
Now, beside me is Sue.
열심히 경기를 치렀는데 저 원하는 대로 잘 안 됐거든요.
You did pull off a great performance here tonight. And there's obviously a lot of fans who came down here to cheer for you. Anything you want to say? Well, first of all, congratulations to Gumiho, who managed to become a champion. Even though I'm the runner-up again. I hope people don't want to focus on just the fact that I'm a runner-up again. I hope people just focus on Gumiho and what he accomplished here tonight and celebrate him, because he should be proud of himself. But also I want to say thank you to everybody who supports me. I guess I'll just keep continuously practicing hard, and maybe next time.
The question at every tournament where Sue made it to the finals inadvertently became, will he get second place again? And will this curse ever end? These very questions even overshadowed the champions of the tournaments. His story had grown beyond him, and everyone wanted to know the ending to the story every Starcraft 2 fan was a witness to. Because of this, Sue's vision of winning a GSL Finals had slowly shifted into winning a global championship. Sue felt that if he could win on the biggest stage, he could amend his past mistakes forever. Sue had lost in 6 finals, which is a record that has surpassed anyone in the Kong lineage. This ultimately prompted the Korean StarCraft 2 community to don the Curse of Sue, a more fitting name for its king. This curse would now be known as the line. The first of its kind, and much like how Yellow was the inspiration for Kong, Sue's name, in Yeon Soo, would be used to describe as a tribute to Sue's incredible streak. This might come across as cruel, but while Korean viewers made fun of Sue a lot, they did it out of love. At this point in Sue's career, just about everyone wanted to see Sue win, but if he lost, it only made it that much more of an incredible story, and they couldn't help but let people know how insane it really was. From memes to storylines, all of it was crafted out of love for Sue. On February 22nd, 2017, Sue would be playing his round of 8 match in the GSL against his opponent TY, but Sue was in a dire spot. Down 0-2 in a best of 5, he was on the edge of being eliminated. This would have been the first time in years that Sue would have ever been eliminated in the round of 8. Sue, doing his best to hold, slowly started to take back the series with the perfect mixture of macro and aggression. The crowd began to cheer louder with each game as the momentum shifted.
You're right about that.
Sue is really pushing the limits on how far you can actually go into somebody's base with ultras.
Well, I think he just wants to keep him back. He's dealing so much damage here at the third base. He's taken down the command center at that 5th. And I think Sue's done it,
Oh my
Tasteless.
God, Sue looks like he might be advancing. TY hanging on for dear life. That Pocket Expo is non-existent. And we will have most likely a Zerg in the Final 4.
Sue just showing amazing play here tonight. Going down. Dude, he was down 0-2, fought back, for a reverse all kill to be the only Zerg into the round of 4. Sue is right. He has done it. He has defeated TY and will be in that round of 4.
Kerrigan! Do you hear me?
I tell you what, she hears that crowd right now. That crowd was just absolutely rooting and chanting for Sue. What an amazing feat.
In an epic turnaround, Sue won 3-2 over TY. The fans were cheering so loudly, he felt the stage begin to shake. It was reminiscent of a time when Sue was a young Zerg player in Brood War playing against Zhongbi, thinking that no one would ever cheer for him the same way they did for Zhongbi all those years ago. It was a reminder for Sue why he had not quit. After all, most players at this point would have. A player with that much experience could have easily become a commentator, a coach, or a streamer. That was the path of Kongs before him, but that would not be the path for Ayan Sue. Because if he wasn't playing for himself, family, or teammates, then it was for his fans, and most of all, the ones who never stopped believing. Unfortunately, this GSL would not be the one he would end up winning. Finally, after 2 GSL finals in 2017, Sue acquired enough WCS points throughout the year to return to BlizzCon once again after 3 years. Sue played his first BlizzCon at a rough period, just coming off of losing 4 finals in that same year. But now he had gained some distance from that version of himself. With more experience than ever and with a new perspective, Sue would be entering BlizzCon without a Kespa team. This was his opportunity to approach BlizzCon with all his focus on one goal: to win a finals. And what better way than winning the most prestigious tournament every player is vying for at the end of the year? To start off BlizzCon, Sue swiftly topped his group in first place. This would put him into the quarterfinals bracket, which would have him going up against Gumiho, a reminder of his last GSL finals. Fortunately, this time Sue would advance over Gumiho 3-2. Sue would dominate another round in the semifinals, putting him in the finals of the tournament. In the fan vote, Sue would always be the favorite to win out of respect for his skill, as well as a desire to see Sue winning a tournament. Fans, more than ever, needed Sue to win this BlizzCon. If Sue could win this, it would make up for everything else in his career. All the second places could be amended. Naturally, Sue would be facing the other favorite to win the tournament in the finals, Rogue. Rogue was an infamous Zerg player for Jin-Air. In many ways, Rogue was the complete opposite to Sue. He mostly specialized in Pro League at the beginning of his Starcraft 2 career, and while he did have impressive placements in individual tournaments, they were very few and far between. Still, it seemed like the stars were aligning for Sue. He had a strong record for a Zerg vs Zerg matchup, and Rogue seemed to lack the premier tournament experience compared to Sue's extensive experience in the finals. Now, finally, at the largest stage in the world, he could prove that he was a champion, once and for all.
Coming in here before a cancel could possibly occur. No, the Roach is here from Rogue, beginning to dive in, and it is taken down. Beautifully done there by Sue.
Oh, and he's getting on top of all of these Roaches. There's Hydras in the back, putting out a huge amount of damage here for Rogue. He's just got to hold on for now until he gets to those lurkers, but Sue continues to rally in.
The time and attack might be too strong. Sue is pushing in. Too many Roaches now, dividing the army from the hatchery. The drones being used to try to defend.
Sue's macro completely out of control. Rogue trying to hold on with every fiber of his being, but unable to do so. GG! More abducts to clear it out, but Sue kills the base in a matter of seconds.
Sue is pulling the trigger, coming forward now. He can divide the third base from the second. He's continuing to spill in, and GG! Sue takes game number 3.
But now here we go, a lot of Lings. He sees them quite quickly with those 2 Zerglings. Sue starting to wall in, trying to get a full wall off here.
The Lings now coming down. He has to have this walled off, enough to buy time for defense of his own. The Lings now coming in, only 2 Queens here to try to hold this position.
Sue in a lot of trouble. The Lings going right after these Queens. The 3rd Queen coming from the top, getting some damage in, but the Lings come in and surround the Queens.
The next Queen goes down. The drone's taking too much damage. An attempted block at the ramp, but it's just not enough.
So many drones going down the Queen as well.
GG! You can see Su trying to stay back, looking for the possible opening. When he engages, he has to make sure it works. Here it comes now!
Oh, a huge fungal going down on these Corruptors. Chain fungal continues to land. A lot of damage being dealt. Parasitic bombs all over the Broodlords.
We see Su's supply getting lower and lower. The fungals continuing to chain. The Broodlords push forward as his base goes down.
These Hydras dealing so much damage to the anti-air of Su. He loses his base and must withdraw from the area. More Corruptors on the way. Su is going to have to keep on making these units, remove these Broodlords, and somehow deal with the ground army of Rogue.
Rogue getting closer and closer to getting towards the remain. The Lurkers now being gunned down. There's too much. There's too many. There's no stopping Rogue now.
Rogue going up into the natural here, killing off one of the last areas of Su.
GG! He has done it. Rogue is your 2017 WCS World Champion!
Once again, Su was faced with a second place, and in BlizzCon no less. It felt like whenever Su needed to win, it became that much harder to close it out. It still hurt after all these years. It hurts because it feels like you failed. You failed them, you failed yourself, and you wanted so bad you'd do anything. But what if anything wasn't enough? What if destiny itself was stopping you from achieving your goal, and you were just another piece to the puzzle of life? A piece that lets someone else win the finals. In times like this, it can feel like the whole world is working against you. Su was striving to be the best in the world, to be a generational talent, but he just couldn't win. And what he became known for was not being able to get the one thing he dreamed of his whole career, to be a champion.
스타투에 대한 좀 죄책감 같은 게 또 있어요. 스타투에 그래도 인기 있는 선수들이 조금 더 경기를 재밌게 해서 팬들을 최대한 유입시켜야 된다라는 생각이 있거든요. 근데 저는 그게 안 되는 것 같아서 스타투 팬분들한테도 그렇고 스타투 판에 좀 미안한 감이 있어요. 예를 들면은 뭐 압도적인 승률의 뭐 이영우 아니면 뭐 엄청 잘생긴 그렇게 좀 이제 어그로가 끌리잖아요.
네.
근데 난 뭐 아무 특출난 게 없는 거예요. 그래서 뭐 팬들한테 좀 죄송한 게 있었어요. 내가 좀 뭔가 이끌고 싶은데 내 능력치는 그게 안 되니까. 그래서 저는 최종 목표는 그거죠. 팬분들을 최대한 많이 유입시키는 거.
The year is 2019, and it's been a couple years since his first BlizzCon finals, and Su had been hinting that his career might be winding down for good. It was understandable after nearly a decade of professional play that he would want to start moving on in his life and do different things. But now, Su was on his way to what could be his last tournament. As StarCraft 2 has aged over the years, so have many of the tournaments surrounding it. Not long after Kespich disbanded in StarCraft 2, ESL started contributing to the premier tournaments with Katowice and became the flagship tournament along with BlizzCon. Now Su would be flying to Poland for his last chance to qualify for IEM Katowice. After a tough year of competition, he was not able to get enough points to be seeded in, and he would have to qualify in an in-person closed qualifier. He would end up making it through the qualifier stage, but was subsequently put into a very difficult main event consisting of 4 6-man round-robin groups. Su was looking to be the favorite of his group, but each player would have to play 5 series, and as he went through his opponents, he seemingly lost to the other favorites, leaving him 0-3. Being left 0-3 in a round-robin group is a dire spot, because it means that even if he won all of his games from now on, he still might not get out depending on his opponent's scores. After 2 more years of waiting for his global finals, it seemed like it was already over. A repeat of the first BlizzCon he attended. Su had no choice but to play his best. He had to play without any regrets. Su would go on to play his remaining matches in the group and 2-0 each of his opponents, which would keep him in contention to move on. Su was no stranger to holding on through tough tiebreakers, and this would be no different. Through a miracle, Su would make it out with his map score, getting himself out of a 4-way tie to go onto the bracket stage. Su narrowly avoided death in the round-robin stage, but there was now a 12-man bracket laid before him, and his first opponent would be the second person to ever beat him in a finals, Zest. At this point, they had a long history of trading games back and forth, but he wasn't feeling any pressure. Perhaps Su was just relieved to have made it into the bracket at all, allowing him to enter the series completely relaxed.
Can he stop this army is the big question here in game 1.
Oh, 2 Zealots splitting off from the pack there.
Oopsie-daisies.
They get isolated. Sloppy control there by Zest. He needs these units. The Zealot count especially is so important here against this swell of Zerglings.
And the Zerglings are going to be very important with dealing with those Immortals as well. The Zealots body blocking, keeping those Zerglings zoned away from these Immortals, which are doing sick damage to that third base. The third base looks like it's about to go down here. The Zest is going to stand as Sue decides to time us now. Biles going on top of those sentries, and it looks like he actually connects very nicely with those Biles. Sue, does he have the Ravages and the Quake Counter to survive here? Can he hold on?
Oh, the War Prism, it's getting hit. Oh, an Immortal picks up into it and goes down with the Prism. Fantastic control by Sue.
Hydras this time, they've got muscular augments, they've got groove spines, they're standing and fighting. The Lings are keeping the units of Zest away from these Hydras, which are outputting sick damage.
Yeah, nice engagement there by Sue. Gigantic arc, superior army count. He did not drone up behind this.
These Hydras don't look like they have muscular augments just yet, but they are pressing the issue with these Banelings looking for those big connections. The Zealots!
The Zealots!
Target here.
They're too clumped up! Oh no! The War Prism trying to save some of these units, but those Banelings just getting on top of it right before charge finishes. Oh, a brutal timing attack here from Sue.
He is just rolling through Zest in this game, and while Storm is done, there's just not enough Storms to make a difference, I feel. Sue is just barreling through this third base. Zest cannot be stopped. He's lost 14 probes. He's not doing enough damage on the other side of the map against the Zerg. I think this might just be curtains right here. GG! Sue getting a 3-0. Oh man, Sue did play well today.
Sue took a 3-0 win against Zest in convincing fashion. Now, Sue had to face Cyril, who's not only the best foreigner in the world, but the best player in the world. He's expected to not only win tournaments, but drop few games as he goes.
어떻게 이게 좀 잘 맞아가지고 극적으로 올라간 거예요, 제가. 거의 지옥 갔다 온 거잖아요. 아, 나는 어차피 떨어질 사람이었고 여기까지 온 것도 되게 운이 좋았다라는 생각으로 되게 마음을 편하게 먹고 했어요.
Cyril was leading the meta, which meant to beat him, you had to beat him at his own game. This resulted in him not losing a ZVZ in an offline tournament in nearly a year. When Sue was asked how he felt about the matchup, he genuinely felt that it was a toss-up that could go either way.
Posturing at the front, he's popped down a Nidus Worm there, and he's coming in.
Yeah, good defense here by Cyril on the Nidus so far. He's gonna have to try and regroup. Roaches plus Cyril, first person, contain yourself, big.
It's a big attack, the Roach advantage here. Notice he's just pushing forwards, making sure all of his Roaches are attacking at once. Another Nidus Worm had already been queued up in the main base.
And now 23 drones have died, more are gonna fall. Cyril all over the place, inside of the main base of Sue as well, stretching him apart.
These Roaches coming back up here for Sue, trying desperately to defend, but the numbers are still relatively even. His drone lines are ransacked, and Cyril, a crisp, clean Game 1 victory. Sue taking some awesome engagements here, using the fastest speed of these Glial Reconstitution Roaches. They are just going in and out, in and out. The micro is fantastic here. Sue, the mechanical beast, taking as good trades as he possibly can.
Cyril is going for a Nidus. He's saying, did you really think you're the one that's gonna attack like this? I'm the one that's gonna attack you, and in a moment I think he's gonna Nidus across the map and go for the offensive, perhaps in the main base, and let's see if Sue's gonna be ready by then. Whoa! Cyril, that was move command here, very unconventional, and he's just gonna tap out.
He's coming in on the north side for a flank. Cyril getting sandwiched. He's still got a good army, but the Biles, the Roaches landing. Sue's got the overwhelming numbers. He's starting to move forward. Cyril's small unit count, his Ravages, his Hydras valiantly fighting. One more blinding cloud comes down. Those Roaches might be his saving grace. Cyril going into the third base of Sue, murdering the drones. He manages to hold on. Transfusers off his injecting queens land. He keeps his army alive. He kills 18 workers on the other side of the map, and they are both locked at 28 workers apiece. He's still up just 2 supply. It's 27 Roaches and 8 Ravages for Sue, up against 18 Roaches and 10 Ravages for Cyril. It's a trap! Oh, he's coming in from both sides. A big blinding cloud lands in the middle. Sue caught in the middle of this Finnish sandwich. And I think Cyril, does he have the numbers? He's still got that upgrade advantage. But Sue busting through on the south side. The Ravages do not have as many hit points as those Roaches. And it seems like Cyril He does not have the army. There's too many roaches. His drone's being pulled into the fray. Another Ravager goes down. Su's focus fire, too good. He's got the income advantage at 55 minerals a minute. Another Ravager gets focused. The bile does not do it. Cyril losing patience. I don't know if he's got the numbers. 2 roaches versus 3. He's trying to pull back his drone. Su looking for the focus fire. He gets it. He's got to focus down that other roach. Nicely done here by Su. That's the last roach, and with it, Cyril taps out. GG.
People couldn't believe how close these games were. Cyril was the obvious favorite, but what they did not understand was that Su was different than his previous opponents. While many were copying Cyril's style of ZVZ, Su chose to play his own way in the matchup. He was making his own path, and whether anyone knew it or not, that person that beat Cyril in an offline tournament nearly a year ago was none other than Su himself.
Ooh, corrosive biles, but Su actually taking the worst end of that fight for sure. At the same time though, his reinforcement's gonna come up. Cyril says, I am keen to fight, mate. I think I've got the better end of the opening stages of this battle, and I am ready to pounce.
He's up 1 upgrade as well. Jumps right on top of this army of Su that's not even gonna try to pull back. And Cyril is getting the cleanup. Look at his supply.
This time it's Cyril's turn to be the bully, using the corrosive piles to keep Su at arm's length. At the same time, his roaches burrowing into multiple bases. Cyril has got the overwhelming numbers. He's engineered a series of fantastic engagements, and that's gonna be it. Tied up. This is a very scary army from Su, potentially game-ending. Cyril cannot fight it in the open. He's got to pull back.
Yeah, still looking to try and dodge this corrosive bias. Su doing a good job of that as well. Both players always reposturing. The roaches on the other side of the map, I think they were finally sniped.
Cyril wants to hang on to this base. If it goes down, his 4th will go down as well. It's on the other side. He's going to try and commit to the engagement, but Su landing some incredible biles. He's got the concave. Su here taking a very good engagement. Both sides' armies just getting slaughtered. It's an absolute slugfest. The biles landing. They're trying desperately, frantically to dodge the other player's corrosive biles. Cyril with 3 red hit point Ravagers in the rear. 1 gets focused down. A big roach reinforced for Su. Is it going to be enough to overwhelm the 5th?
Yeah, the drones being pulled as well to try and tank some of the damage at the front. Corrosive bites almost landing in the middle of these Ravagers. Su has so much left over now with the supply leads.
Oh, he might have done it. Su here just committing with mass roach Ravager, having less workers, less economy, but the better upgrade so huge throughout this as well. Cyril unable to hang on, and he has been eliminated. Su doing the impossible.
With a 3-2, Su advanced over the favorite of the entire tournament. How did this happen? With each win, Su's taste for victory did not increase. He was simply satisfied taking each round as it came. This isn't to say he didn't try, but he didn't yearn for more. He was at peace with his result. Now in the round of 4, he had to face his next opponent, Hero. Hero was a tactical player, someone who you could never know what to expect, and it made him one of the most dangerous of them all. There is another version of the myth of Sisyphus that I did not mention earlier. Many people have heard the Greek mythos of Sisyphus and his endless suffering, but there is another interpretation of Sisyphus and his journey. The philosophy of Sisyphus recounts the story and his mundane task of rolling up the boulder, but the author, Camus, does not see a man who is suffering, but rather someone who is free. The way Camus sees Sisyphus is that he does not surrender to despair, wondering what awaits him at the top of that hill, but rather, he finds joy in being. Sisyphus, in an act of rebellion, becomes free by living life without appeal.
Yeah, Hero still wants... He really wants to attack. He only stayed on 46 probes. He's grabbing a Dark Shrine behind this. That was the saving grace against Trap yesterday. The Immortals joining the fight now. Corrosive bites are going to be so important. They're focused on breaking those force fields right now. A lot of Zerg units trapped in the middle.
Those force fields just separating so many of the roaches stuck in the back lines. But the corrosive piles are beginning to punish Hero. The micro doing very well here for Hero, but he's run out of force fields. Is there enough Zerg left over? Yes, there is. The swell of Zerglings comes in from behind and surrounds the push. Hero frantically trying to micro these last few Immortals.
The War Prism is forced to come back home, sadly, so he's not going to be able to warp in Dark Templars on the other side of the map to try and snipe a lot of drones to come back the way he did against Trap. Su jumping on top of these forces here from Hero. He was completely out of position. And Hero, he was just too predictable there. Su takes game number 1.
He's waiting, he's looking for an angle, but this has given Su the time to get a gigantic Roach Force out.
This is so bad, he's gonna lose so many Zealots before charge even finishes, and even then Su's army was looking massive with all of the Roaches, with the Queens and the Transfusions available here. It feels like he doesn't even need to kite.
This is just dominating play by Su. A Zealot all incoming, and he's finally starting to get a little bit of damage done to those Queens. I love the Phoenix picking up the Queen at the back as well. The Zealot starting to wear down the numbers. The extra Roaches aren't here just yet. The Roach count going down. Su perhaps making a mistake by fighting in the open. He did have enough numbers, but with those Roaches coming in, Spines walking in from the third base as well. Is he going to be able to get together a defense? The Zealots, when the Roaches are spread out like this, are incredibly powerful. Their raw damage output is insane.
Yeah, trying to crank out more units here is Su, but with the loss of those Queens, he's not injecting on neither the second base or third base here. The Spines coming to join the fight. The drones were on stop commands, and that Prism deep behind enemy territories here. This has killed 8 drones. I don't think that's enough here. 36 walkers now to 46. And it feels like this has been shut down for now. Here, Su's gonna set up a surround here. The Lynx coming in from the left-hand side. Force fields go down. But I don't know if he has enough to really trap this army away. So many Roaches getting on top of these sentries and Immortals. The Immortals are just gonna go down. And that's it. The army of Hero is just gonna evaporate. And with it, the second map as well.
Devastating. I believe they've only got one storm per High Templar. Hero looks like he wants to fight here, but I think he's got to be careful. That's still a ton of Roach Hydra. It all comes down to how well he can use his force fields and his side storms.
Yeah, Su needs to dodge these storms here. He needs to minimize the force field impact in this fight, pulling back as soon as the storm goes down. Every storm is on observer, it killed it, but some of these start on landing. Picked up. Hero moving inside of the army of the Zerg. That was almost a mistake here.
Yeah, his storms are now out. The force fields were decent, but it feels like Su has so many numbers. Drones being pulled off the line to help support. Files breaking down the last force fields. The Zealots on the left-hand flank are wearing their way through. The numbers thinning out on both sides. Hero has the upgrade advantage. His Immortals and Archons still alive. He's taking an okay trade, but if he loses the Immortals, he's in big trouble.
Su's trying to go for the Prism here, but
few Roaches and Hydralisks coming together, and that core of Immortals and Archons is not going to be stopped. Hero brings it back. But the Prism might even be more important. Its ability to micro your Immortals around is absolutely massive. He's going to try and catch some of these Roaches with his force fields, but those sentries are low on energy, Todd. A lot of them were just warped in. Another wave is good, but the Biles breaking through. The Roaches and Hydras crashing over. He's trying to warp in more sentries, but one of the Immortals has already fallen, and without the War Prism to pick them up to safety, another Immortal is going to go down.
Yeah, those Ravagers able to break through those force fields. Those Archons were needed in the fight. I think Hero knows that he messed up, and he messed up for one last time here in this series. Su seizing the opportunity, just getting a ton of units and using the weakness here of that third base and all the surface area that he could to attack with a massive army here to put an end to this match.
Oh, the Archons morphing on the outside of the wall. The Biles are going to land on them before the Prism can whisk them to safety. 2 more Archons go down. And with that, unfortunately, Hero's last Immortal falls. He has to tap out.
Suddenly, through a series of incredibly close calls, Su found himself in the finals of IEM Katowice against Stats, another player he once fought in a GSL finals in 2017. Stats was everything the previous players were and more. Stats was at the height of his career, and he had only been stopped short to Cyril, leaving him 2 second places in a row, until now. Once Su beat Cyril, it became Stats' tournament to lose, and the pressure was on. Su, on the other hand, was fully present. Utilizing Su's peace of mind, he traversed through each round with acceptance. Throughout his career, Su had been in more finals than almost any player, and Su felt something he had never felt before. Su was truly feeling eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is a term from the ancient Greeks that describes the highest human good that is desirable for its own sake. Being content with the journey without having expectations of what's to gain from it. Su, after a decade of professional play, felt eudaimonia. He was not thinking about what's next or about winning the tournament, but rather just of the present moment, playing for now and nothing more. One must imagine Su happy.
If Su comes in before +2 is done and just overwhelms with sheer numbers, he is up of 50, 60 army supply right now, collapsing onto this army of the Protoss Knights. Force fields on the left from Stats though. Corrosive Files to break them down. The Warp Prism reinforcing this position. never mind. This Protoss army is doing so much to this army of Su, which seems to be split into pieces.
Oh my god, he pulls back the Wounded Immortals. He's continuing to let them fire freely. Go ahead and fight my Zealots. If Big Daddy Immortals are behind that, chucking out damage, then you are not going to be winning this fight. Making units that don't fight particularly well here. Here come all the Queens. Fortfield's going down. This fight's going to be a sticker right now. And the Immortals doing all the damage. Su, you do not have much left, my friend. There's more Immortals than just about any roaches. GG is called. And first blood goes to Stats. +3 attack is on the way for Stats. Are you kidding me? So Su's got to do something here.
He's going to try and go for the Hail Mary, trying to bully himself on the ramp. Stats holding on very strong with these Immortals and Archons holding the line. My God, Su just cannot break through Stats' defenses. He truly is the shield. The reinforcements from the Natural doing their best, but the Immortals just hang strong. They've got their hardened shields as well. And Stats is not going to slow down. He can just move to victory here.
The Immortals are all but untouched. That's it. Su says, I'm out of here. Stats 2-0 in this best of 7. He's a couple of maps away.
Su was beginning to panic.
또 준우승이구나. 나는 우승 절대 못하는 사람이구나. 이 생각을 하고 3경기 할 때부터 또 마음가짐을 좀 바꿨어요. 준우승이랑 상관없으니까 좀 편하게 하자. 그래서 좀 부담 안 느끼고 편하게 했는데
Everything he had built up during the tournament was starting to crumble around him. But wait, what's another runner-up anyway? Wasn't this for his fans? If he loses and goes out 0-4 without a fight, it'd be way worse than any runner-up. The least he could do was put up everything he had into each game. This is what they deserved for sticking with him after so long.
I don't know, Su. He's getting off creep here, trying to chase down this Protoss army. I mean, yeah, maybe he gets a couple Zealots, but there's those force fields and he's going to lose a handful of roaches.
This is not the right fight for Stats, though. Even with the force fields, most of his army's Zealots. It's not backed up by the huge number of Immortals.
Where you going, mate?
Not anywhere good, that's for sure. He's going to have to back up here. Immortals taking damage there as well.
To be able to give himself a lot more service area. He's collapsing on the third Nexus. Is this Su's time? These Hydras doing a lot of damage with their +1 attack from the back line. Stats doing what he can with what he has. He does have a reinforcement of charge boss to the left-hand side. The Immortals doing damage in the middle. But this time, the defensive line is being broken. Su is starting to chip through the defenses of Stats. Stats Prism Micro is godlike. But Su's just got great numbers. These Hydras giving him pay. He's up 80 army supply now. Stats cannot hold on. And Su is just poised to get himself a map win here against Stats.
And finally, he finds the fight that he's been looking for in 3 games now on his worst map. Stats tabs out.
Also could get harassment as well. A bunch of Banelings rolling into the third base. Stats evacuating the probes here. Doesn't want to take any of that probe damage with the Lynx. Coming in with the Hydras, catching an Archon immediately here. The Banelings are still chasing under those probes. The Zealots wash against them, but they take tons of splash damage. Su pressing the issue again. The High Templar managing to get away from those Banelings. The Banelings starting it again. Forcing an Archon, killing a High Templar. Su's army is getting thinned down, but I don't think it's been thinned down enough.
No, it's done so much damage as well. A lot of the probes did die there, and more are dying in the background. The Immortals have nothing to protect them, and that's it. One thing to tap out.
Oh, man.
Boy, it looked like he was thinking about it, at least. He might hang in here for a second.
Maybe he was all talking to a friend, but that would be really weird. This is a grand final. He's surrounded these Immortals, and it is looking like it's all over here. There it is. Su's tied it up. He's got a few storms here on these armies, and it has to be nice storms. Nice breakaway of these Banelings from Su. He gets a bit of damage, but he still has primarily more Banelings here in this army. A lot more Lings are coming through. Both players in a relatively low economic situation, which is not so great for the Zerg. The Banelings getting they connect with the High Templar there. The Archons are being morphed, which is not part of the battle. The Zealots are going into a concave of Zerg units here. Su doing the damage again.
There's just not enough. The Zealots are getting warped in, but they're dying just as fast. 129 to supply to 74. Stats is dead again. It's Su's won 3 in a row. He's one game away.
This kid was 0-3 in group stages. He should not be here, but he is. He's earned his seat, and he is on match point against the best Protoss in the world. Soul Train?
He's actually going for it.
Yeah. He's an Immortal Sentry attack.
Su, once the little kid from Daejeon who just wanted to prove that SKT Zergs could win a tournament, found himself 11 years later playing for something much bigger than winning. Just when it seemed like he had been counted out as the old generation of players, Su, in the face of adversity, won the tiebreaker in bracket stage, defeated his enemies from GSL, and beat the best player in the world, staying true to himself. Now, one game away from winning Katowice, on the world stage, all Su could think about was...
Su's got that concave tries to get back. The Prism is in danger here for his queen. Starting to take the damage here. Su's just standing and fighting. Is this it? Has he
He's done it. The War Prism's gone. There's no third base behind this. That's gonna be it. Stats. You attacked yourself into a corner, and he taps out. Su's done it.
Oh, he's done it. The curse has been broken here in Poland. Su, you magnificent.
Oh my
Zerg, you've
God.
done it. In front of all of us here, in front of tens of thousands of viewers, like 100,000 viewers here in the arena. We have seen magic happen on stage here so many times in Poland. This year, 2019, is no different. What a final, and what a showing for the Zerg. I'm so happy for him. I'm actually almost in tears.
Yeah.
Too. I know how this feels. This is so incredible.
Oh, that's the smile of relief, Maynard. He's gonna lift the trophy. You've done it, Su. You worked so hard. He's gotten here before. He's came so close. But this time, here in Katowice in 2019, this man was able to reach up and grab that trophy. He's at the bottom of the group earlier, just a couple of days ago. He was down 0-2 here, but he prevailed. He did it again. He was able to fight forward, believe in himself, and get that win.
In one of the greatest stories of esports history, Su did something that no Kong before him had ever done. He surpassed the curse on the largest stage of the game, ascending past the need for glory and found eudaimonia in the moment. It was almost as if the constant struggle of trying to win a championship was the very thing keeping him from ever succeeding. Su became a champion of the game and solidified his career in the history of not only Starcraft 2, but also the history of esports itself. The curse breaker, the one who could not be contained, and no matter how many losses, he could not be discouraged. Anyone else would have quit, became a caster, streamer, switched games, but Su kept playing at the highest level for 11 years. Su's fans were so excited for his win that they even crowdfunded for a billboard in a subway station in South Korea. In just a couple hours of announcing the fundraiser, everything had been paid for. Everyone was so excited to show that Su was finally the champion they all saw him as. From someone who didn't even want to be a pro gamer to overcoming the stigma of SKT Zergs, Su transformed the roster into one of the most stacked Zerg teams in Starcraft 2. Su also became the most consistent player in the world, outdoing anyone for GSL final placements. Su cites himself as unremarkable, and that people are not interested in who he is as a player. He's not absurdly handsome, he doesn't have a unique playstyle that draws in fans, and that it's just his incredible story that people care about. I think this is not true. While the story of what happened to Su was remarkable, it's the fact that Su, despite everything he went through, was so tenacious about going forward that it could have only happened to him. Su does what I believe to be the only answer to beating the curse, which is to release yourself from expectations and live in the present moment. Many Kongs quit, but Ayan Su keeps going. He's the only one that beat their curse against all odds. Su was unstoppable.
그런 스토리도 굉장히 특별한데 그거에 더해서 제가 좀 압도적인 실력을 원했던 것 같아요. 그래서 뭐 지금도 굉장히 만족하고 있습니다.
Thank you to all my patrons. It's been a long year, and a special thank you to Cole Modler for the Queen tier support.